Hey, you're looking at a picture, a still picture right now, of where the Cass River and the Tittabawassee River come together in Saginaw, Michigan. In ancient times, it was a very, very busy area, and as such, there are a lot of artifacts to be found in that area. I went out early today with my friend Gil Alberg and looked for prehistoric artifacts as well as historic, and found some interesting pieces, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. I'm going to show you some actual video that I shot while we were out on this farm field where we were finding the pieces, and then I'm going to show you some still images of the artifacts that we actually found. There were some nice ones. I mean, not beautiful spear points or arrowheads, but some nonetheless really nice artifacts that were utility in use for the people that were at this particular site. It was hard to ascertain what was going on at that site because I saw absolutely no pottery remnants. Pottery would have given an indication that it was perhaps used as a village site. Not the case there. All I found were lithics or stone tools. So I'm going to show you some clips first of the site itself, and then I'm going to show you individual pictures of the artifacts and describe to you what it is. I'm at a farm field in Saginaw. I'm not exactly certain where it's at. I can't really tell you. My friend Gil Alberg brought me out here. He's been finding a lot of pottery chips and broken tools out here, prehistoric. And just today, we already picked up a nutting stone, or a sandwich stone, I guess you'd call it. I don't guess you'd call it. I know that's what you'd call it. And fragments of chert or flint. And I'll take actual pictures of those pieces when I am back at home. But this, as near as I can tell, this is pretty close to the confluence of the Tittabawassee and Cass River. Cass River has a pretty big history of Native Americans, and in fact I have some videos on here that I'll try to remember to put a link to in the descriptions. So I'll take more pictures as I continue along, but I just wanted to get some setting shots and show you where I'm at. It's kind of this election day, November 8th, overcast and misty. A perfect day to be out in the field looking for artifacts. This is a little side creek. There's a little bridge up there, old one that was made some years ago. It's a really pretty spot. Very nice place to come out and look for the artifacts. I would say where we're at was at one time probably a village site. Maybe there's really scant artifacts here. There's no pottery that I've seen, so it's hard to say exactly what was going on here in prehistory. But most of the artifacts that I've seen today, and that Gil has seen, come from around that power line. Right at that power line tower now. I just found a huge tooth, and I picked it up before I thought of turning the camera on. As I scour the ground here, there are all kinds of fragments of flint from tool production. Again, I don't know exactly what was going on at this site, but I have found a number of interesting stone tools that right now are in my coat pocket, which is way down a ton. But I will wash those and show them to you a little bit later when I get home. I suspect this has been picked over for a long time. I'm only finding fragments of flint or chert, but I found a number of large tools that the average collector would just walk past because they wouldn't recognize it. Most of them recognize arrowheads, spear points, and stuff of that nature, celts. But I've found some interesting pieces here that I'll show you when I get back. But again, I think the arrowheads and that kind of thing have been pretty much picked over. It's still possible to find one or two here, though. But big tools seem to be the rule. I seem to have lost Gil and Freddy in the woods. I'm going back to his car to put what I found so far in there. Maybe I can find some other stuff. Coming up on this cool little footbridge here that I guess the county or city put up here. As you can see, it's pretty neat though. It's in disrepair, and you can really very easily probably get hurt on it. but it's cool how the sides flare out and all that. Kind of a neat place. And then, you know, the little creek. I don't know if this ditch was man-made or if it was, you know, part of the natural water system here. But it's really a lovely spot. Weeping willow tree there. Very. So on the left is Cass.
Yeah.
And then to the
Yeah, I don't know, they used to camp on it, man.
You did?
No, they used to.
Oh.
When they had the park, Riverside Park over there, they also had the campsite just across the river from them. Nobody ever place to stop and talk to them.
Yeah.
Telling her dog, shut up, shut up.
All right, just go to focus.
How long can you wipe out? The world looks so funny upside down.
You gonna take a nap? You gonna take a nap now? Okay, hope you enjoyed the videos of the site that I was at. The first artifact that I want to show you is a very nice nutting stone, which are sometimes found in pairs, and when they are, they're called sandwich stones. Now this specimen has a depression on both sides. You see, when acorns and nuts were placed on the surface of the nutting stone, another stone was used to slam against it and break open the acorn or nuts or whatever. And it would have been a stone about the same size as its paired piece. This piece is well rounded and shows use on all edges for grinding. Besides crushing open the nuts, the edges were used, as I said, for fine grinding, which usually ended up making the rock or the artifact pretty circular. This nutting stone is a tan-colored heavy stone, and it measures about 5 inches by 5 inches by 2 inches. A really nice piece that was picked up by Gil when we first went in. The second piece is a fine grinding and abrading stone. While all the surfaces show signs of use, one side is ground flat from use. This is a very heavy, dark tan stone, which is quite granular, not unlike sandstone, but much harder than sandstone. It's not unlike the stone used in grinding wheels today, but the piece is very heavily used. You can see it on all surfaces. This abrading stone measures about 6 inches by 4 inches by 2 inches, and I found this one in close proximity to the nutting stone that Gil picked up. Now, one edge in particular is flattened from use. Really cool piece. It's unfortunate that when people have gone in to look for the display artifacts, the arrowheads and such, that they overlook these pieces because they're maybe not as attractive, but they were certainly as significant, if not more significant, in the life of the Native American who used them. This third artifact is also an abrader, but with a more specific purpose than the previous one. One side of this is humped and would be held in the palm of the hand. The other side is somewhat flattened with a deep groove worn into it. This was quite likely used for honing perhaps arrow shafts and other woodworking uses. It's a remarkable piece, really, and it measures about 5 inches by 3 inches by 2 inches. It is a rather greenish colored stone. You can see small crystalline formations in it, and very easy to see that it was used quite heavily. Now, the fourth piece here is an artifact, and it's a very interesting one in that it is a handheld mortar for grinding perhaps small amounts of things. Now, this was has a finely ground concave surface, which shows very heavy usage. Now, this was obviously altered to be held in the right palm of the hand. A piece was knocked off there, so it fits right up against the base of the thumb. I don't know what you call that part of your hand. But anyways, fits right there. It would have had, originally there would have been a mortar, or excuse me, a pestle used with it. I didn't see any traces of the pestle, but this is an off-white stone, very hard stone, and really an excellent piece, an excellent display piece. It just bugs me when people go in and just look for the arrowheads and the spear points and that kind of stuff, because yeah, they tell a significant part of the story, but every bit as significant are these artifacts, and you don't get a whole picture of any site if you don't look at the whole thing together. But anyways, I'll get off my bandwagon on that one. Now this piece is a very primitive, but there are enough indicators to convince me that this stone was altered for use by ancient man. My dear friend, who has since gone home to be with the Lord, would say, Jerry Wagner would say, I'm certain, 99.99% certain, that it was altered by the hand of man, and I believe this piece was. But as I said, it's very primitive. This would have been a handheld chopping stone, which could have been used on wood or to break bone open, or many other purposes. One edge has been hacked or honed down, not really honed down, it's been hacked down to a crude cutting bit. The stone itself is very interesting, with a dark black greenish color, and very hard and very dense. And in this one also you can see a crystalline formation. It almost has a patina like the greenish, like copper does, but it's not copper. No, when you smell it, you don't smell any trace of copper in it, and copper has a very distinctive smell. But at any rate, this artifact measures about 3 inches by 2 3/4 inches by 1.5 inch is thick. Now here we have a piece that I refer to as problematical, and I say that because, again, I believe that it's been altered by the hand of man for use, but I can tell you what I think it is, but I cannot say it dogmatically. I believe this was a hefted piece, and that it displays some signs of being crudely grooved, so that it would have been attached to a handle. Again, though, and used like a celt or an axe. But again, though, on this piece, it is just an educated guess. But being where it was found, and in close proximity to other artifacts, I really feel that this was used by ancient man. This measures about 4 inches by 2.5 inches by 1 inch thick. Okay, here we have a piece that's not complete. It was a grinding stone. You can see the edge. It was rounded from grinding, much in the same manner that the nutting stone would have been rounded in grinding. This one has a really obvious crystalline structure. It is pinkish, whitish, blackish. There's a lot of stuff going on in it. I'm not good at telling different kinds of stones, but this piece was heavily used for grinding. And speaking of grinding and nutting stones, this piece is broken, as you can see. I believe that it was another nutting stone. You can see a depression on both sides, but you can also see striations where it was used to grind, perhaps grind bone down to a point or something of that nature. This is a greenish material, very dense, very hard stone, and it was again a stone in that category of being a grinding stone. This tooth is very interesting to me. It's a large tooth. I believe that it could be oxen. The farmland was settled very early on in the history of Saginaw County. It was first occupied in 1835, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. But anyways, he did have oxen team that he brought in to work his land there. This is a large tooth, and I believe it is an oxen tooth, but I'm not sure. You can see a really interesting grinding surface on the tooth, and just I almost went over this because there was just a little piece of it sticking out of a clump of mud, but thankfully I had the presence of mind to pull it out of the mud because it's a really cool display piece, and it's a really interesting piece, perhaps significant after the first Europeans came in here. Along with that, I found a small collection of white shards of pottery, not Indian pottery, European pottery. And these, it's hard to date material like this, but I believe that they would have been contemporary to the time period that the tooth was there, and could very easily go back to that period of 1835. Now there are three pieces here, and I like to refer to these as thumb knives because they were held between the forefinger and the thumb with an edge, very sharpened, retouched edge for cutting. They were used extensively around the hearth or campfire for cooking and cutting the material that was being used. These are three really nice examples of thumb knives, again left behind by those who sought out the prettiest artifacts that may have been there. We know that Indians used stone drills to drill stone and bone, and here what I'm showing you is the base of a stone drill. It is widened on both sides, thinned, and as I said, it's a broken piece. It's the base of one, and the drill point would have extended down from that base. It would have been attached to a shaft, much like an arrow shaft, and it was more than likely used with a bow type drill, which did a pretty darn good job at making holes in stone and in bone. This piece is a broken piece. I believe it was being worked probably into an ovate knife form. It's not chert or flint, but you can see along the edge where it has been pressure flaked to form it into the tool that the creator was, specifically going for. Even as it is, it would have been a very sharp knife on that edge to use also around the campfire or whatever. This next piece, it is chert. It has a dorsal ridge. I feel it was devitage from tool production, but I believe it was a waste piece that was used. I don't see any pressure flaking along the edges, but it wouldn't really need it because it was sharp enough just as it is. That piece is about 2 inches long and would have made an excellent cutting tool, an excellent knife. Okay. Now this next little piece, this is really small. This is about an inch long, but you'll notice that it's notched, and that notch was used probably very much like a spoke shave would have been used. It would have undoubtedly been used in working on arrow shafts, and would have helped to shape that shaft of wood into a usable device, if you will. Here are two pieces that both display a notch. These were being formed into arrowheads. They broke as they were being worked on and thus discarded, but they would have been very small arrowheads, possibly even what is called bird points, which were used not just for birds, but were also used for small animals. Broken points like this are prolific on sites where stone was worked, because even though they were very excellent and proficient at working stone into tools, naturally there was some breakage, and these two represent breakage. This is a large piece of, I say comparatively large, of chert, and this too I believe was being formed into a point. but I'm not sure on that. But it's interesting because there were two kinds of chert that I picked up there. They were both Bayport cherts, but one was nodular and one was tabular. This one was nodular, and you can see the concentric rings in it, and that means that it came from a chert nodule, which probably came from the thumb area of the state where Bayport chert hails from. But it's a good example of nodular chert, which they used a lot of. But as I said, they also used a lot of tabular chert, and this piece I'm showing you now is tabular. Instead of the circle pattern in it, you'll see that it's straight. This came from a slab rather than a nodule. These next few pieces I'm showing you are all just odds and ends that were picked up. They were used for cutting. They are, primitive cutting tools. Probably most interesting of those pieces is this one that you'll see, which is a piece of Petoskey stone, our state fossil. It's the only piece of Petoskey stone I saw there, and I don't believe it's native to this particular part of Michigan so much. And it very much looks along the one edge as if it had been was being worked down into a sharp edge, and it is sharp enough for cutting. So that little piece is also, I believe, altered by the hand of ancient man to serve as a cutting device. And then there were lots of fragments that were interesting, but they were just broken flakes and things off from the actual production of tools that were just discarded, that didn't really have any particular use. Oh, I hope you've enjoyed looking at these. As I said, I enjoyed so much being able to go out and find them and to look at this site, even though, as I said early on, I'm paying for it with the pain that I'm experiencing today. But it was worth it. And please feel free to leave comments in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you think. And hey, you have a great day, and God bless.